California guys. My name is Hao Jiang, and this is Last Week in America. I'm currently a month into quarantine, and I just had my first haircut, so let me know what you guys think. I usually do not let my parents give me a haircut, but desperate times, desperate measures, so I end up getting a haircut. Uh, Little about me. So, I was in Moscow from February to mid-March, studying at the MGIMO University. I was studying abroad in their their international relations and business schools. I'm currently in California since since mid-March, and basically been doing everything my power to stay busy and yeah. So if you have any questions about my time in Moscow, what California is like, or how I'm responding to the situation, please let me know in the comment section. Uh, so next slide. Okay, food waste. So due to the plummeting demands in schools, restaurants, and hotels, farmers in the United States are dumping millions of gallons of milk every day and burying thousands of fresh vegetables. Tens of millions of pounds of American gross produce is rotting in the fields as food banks across the country are struggling to meet a massive surge in the demand caused by the virus. So right now, in a lot of American farms, farmers are letting a lot of their produce, like lettuce, onions, and stuff, rot because they're not able to sell it off to major to restaurants who, as of today, remain largely very much closed in the United States. Uh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that at the time, but surprisingly, most of the produce actually goes to big. They go to corporate big companies that, in return, send the produce into restaurants where a lot of Americans eat. I just thought that was very interesting. And then food banks are these little. I mean, they're not little; they're pretty big. But there are these little organizations where they basically deliver food. It's a government program that delivers food to people that make money below an intern, below a certain income bracket. Usually, it's not too high quality food. It's okay-ish quality, but every month they can every couple weeks they can check out some milk, some chicken, some vegetables, some fruits, and yeah. Next slide. Be sure to ask me any questions in the comment section. I love answering questions. Actually, please ask me questions. This is actually one of my highlights of my week. Let me know what you think of this. So, what is being wasted? Up to 3.7 million gallons of milk are being wasted every day in America right now. Farmers, right after getting it from the cows, they just they're basically draining the milk into drains right now, and it's just. In Florida, up to 250 million pounds of tomatoes will be left in the fields, and 75% of the lettuce crop will go unharvested. You see this image right now. This is basically a bunch of lettuce crops, but they've been crushed by tractors with their the lettuce head being split open, so they can just be left to rot in the field. In Florida, produce growers will take $500 million hit. In California, the industry, the produce industry, will lose up to $1 billion a month. The U.S. Fresh Produce Association estimate its members are losing out on $1 billion a week, and that's a lot of money. Okay. What is your favorite county in California? So my favorite county is actually my own county, Santa Clara County, which I actually lived most of my life in. Originally, I lived in a city called Morgan Hill. I moved before I like moving to my current city, which is called Palo Alto, when I was 6, roughly. Um, I guess it's just like I love my city because it's how comfortable it is, and then like how like like when I tell people my city or like my county, like county from around the world, people know my city. And like my city is a pretty small city. Like my city is called Palo Alto. It has about a population of 60,000 roughly. But like among the 60,000, we have a lot of like famous people. Like let's put it this way: like for Halloween, I used to trick or treat at Steve Jobs or Google founders Larry Page's house. Their houses are actually right next to each other, so like sometimes sometimes like I will hit their house like multiple times for Halloween because their candy bars they give are like literally that big, and you just like hit their house like 10 times, so you get bigger like candy bars. Hi, from Sergey Petrov. Petrov. Hi, do you speak Chinese? How many languages do you speak? I do speak fluent Mandarin. Um, I guess I also speak 2 half languages. Like I'm not quite there with fluency. Russian and German. Please don't test me in Russian. It's not going to be pretty. Like I probably can understand what you're going to be like writing, but like it's going to be hard for me to formulate like a sentence. Uh, Question 3 from Conquer the World. Why did you study in Russia? So, go to Russia was always a dream for me. Like, I was always bound to go to Russia for one reason or another. Like, I guess it was like studying abroad was just like I wanted to go somewhere a little more for studying in Russia. Like, I want to go somewhere a lot more exotic than like most people from my school in Massachusetts go to. Like, most people like at my school, they either go to like London, Spain, Germany, Italy. But like I want to do something completely different, so I chose Russia, something that like has never been done for my school. But like, yeah, it was relatively interesting, honestly. Um, it is it is kind of I don't know. My time in Russia was like probably the most anxious filled, but the most fun half a semester of my actually less than half a semester of my life. Um, I thought everything was so unexpected. You wake up in the morning and you're just like you wake up and you're just like, what's gonna happen now? And it was just like I don't know. It was really interesting, but like I realized quickly anything can happen in Russia, and like it was, and that caused it to make it a little stressful. But at the end of the day, I had a great time. I really want to go back. Uh, this weekend, if like everything went well and coronavirus was not really a thing, I would probably be in St. Petersburg for the first time. But I got sent home, so I don't think I'm gonna be in St. Petersburg anytime soon. Hopefully, like next year, but like, who knows? How many years of income is considered good in California? So the thing about California is like it varies by like different areas of California. Like in my area, I live in one of the most expensive places in the United States. Houses here are literally $2.5 million. So you kind of have to have a pretty good income to afford life here. Uh, but like other places in California, houses are a lot cheaper. Properties are also a lot cheaper. So generally, like the income is like probably a little lower. What's really interesting is just like how much minimum wage income, like for like low intelligence jobs, like what I do, like lifeguarding. Um, like how much I earn compared to like my friends back in like Georgia or Alabama earn. Like for my job, I'm a lifeguard, and every hour I get $18.50. But remember I do have to pay a lot of taxes. And then like my friends in like Georgia or like Oregon, they only get like their minimum wage is like $7 or something, and it's just like actually no, the minimum wage in my city is actually $16 right now. So yeah, I get a little over minimum wage right now. Wasted does it from a question from Natalia? Does wasted mean lost or consumed? It means lost, like completely just rotting on the fields. Does the food wasted mean that there will be a food shortage later in the year? Um, Potentially. Right now it's like very hard to get like some food supplies. Like you can't really find any more like big bags of full size potatoes, like the really big ones. You only can find the tiny ones in the store. The supply of ice cream has also been pretty bad. Like for an ice cream connoisseur like me, like I live for my ice cream. Like I used to be able to get like ice cream containers that big, and now I can't find them at stores, and I really miss them. Um, Hello, could you please tell me how what being an American in Russia feels? So, well, interesting enough, like in Russia, like it was kind of hard because like nobody really considered me to be an American unless like I tell them I'm an American. Like um it was a little it was a little interesting because everyone thought it was Chinese, and like during the coronavirus pandemic, it's like probably one of the last things you want to be in Russia. But like it was relatively, I don't know, it was like I got like because of the pandemic, like when I went to like the Russian metro, like the Moscow like metro a lot, I would get like stopped by the police a lot. Usually it was like not too big of a deal. They just like looked at my American passport. They look at it and with like disbelief and like a little jealousy, I presume, and then just like close it and they're like, "Thank you," and then they like salute me. But like normally, it's like being an American in Russian. Like it is pretty interesting actually. Like I didn't like Russians are generally like I found they don't really like the average state like Russian, they do not really hate Americans. Like I have so many good stories to tell about Russians like eating food with like random Russian families who just start buying our drinks and stuff, and like it's a place where I really recommend to everyone. But the thing is, like a lot of Americans, like including the ones I go to school with, are a bit scared of Moscow and scared of Russia. I mean, to be fair, I originally was pretty scared of Russia because everything was just like I didn't know what to expect, and like everyone, like all my friends that been to Russia had a different story to tell, and I don't even know which one's like more real or which one's more fake. But yeah, I am like very thankful for my time in Russia. It was like literally the best month and a half of my life. I learned so much. My Russian improved a lot, and it was just like, yeah, it was a great time. I really wish I could be in Russia right now, but like coronavirus ruins everything. Are there many Iranians in California from your point of view? It has to be a lot. Do you have Iranian friends? I actually do know a lot of. I mean, I know a decent amount of Iranians, mostly from like school activities and stuff. Usually, a lot of the Iranians in California, they kind of they left right after the Shah of Iran fell in '79. So they're like They came to America pretty early. I've met a lot of Iranian Jews, um, and that's like pretty interesting. I didn't know they were a thing until like I made friends with a couple of them. Uh, Another question. What is your opinion about this U.S. sanctions against Iran in the COVID-19 era? Generally, like my opinion, I think it's like U.S. should still be able to send like a lot of aid to Iran. It is like it's not really the time to politicize issues. Uh, and it's just like I don't know. It kind of it saddens me to see what's happening in like in Iran right now. Like I've seen like snippets of videos of people just like falling ill on like in the middle of the street and stuff. And then like I really hope we can do something about it. But like with the current like situation in like Washington and like I don't think it's really possible. And it's just like it's a pain, honestly. Question 10. Hello, have you ever been to Moscow? So I was in Moscow from early February to mid March for 7 weeks. Best 7 weeks of my life. Moscow is a beautiful city, also a very crazy city. Like, I feel like I used to joke with my a lot of my friends and like family. Like, I probably added like I probably lost 5 years out of my life in Moscow because it was just like how stressful everything was, but like how fun everything was. Next slide. So guys, if you continue to have questions, just like please just start writing them in the chat. It will be good for me, and yeah, I'll answer them after like I finish the slide. So why is the food being wasted? So many farmers have donated their surplus to food banks and Meals on Wheels programs, like which have been overwhelmed with demand. So, like right now in a photo, this is like a food bank, and you can look at the line of cars waiting for the food from the food bank. There's been like crazy stories where there's like literally a couple miles of cars waiting for food from the food bank, and it's just like it's a very dire situation because like they really need food, but they're also not supposed to be like lining up like that. Uh, so and then like so a lot of those like charities and food banks that donate food to like the needy, like they only have a limited number of refrigerators and like volunteers that can help with them. So like you get situations where they have long lines like this. Also, like the cost of harvesting, processing, and transporting the produce and milk would put a further financial strain on farms. Like right now, they're getting next to no income, but they still have to like stay like they still have to like stay what's that word? Stay afloat. So despite like there's like a 70% like increase in demand at food banks for like food, there has been like no significant like coordinated response from the government to getting the surplus of like perishable foods to more people in need. This is considered like one of the failures of the government right now. Like, next slide. So what is being done? Uh, So the Department of Agriculture took more than a month to make its first significant move to buy surplus fruits and vegetables. So, and that was like relatively recently, early April. Uh, in, in mid-April, the USDA, which is the U.S. Food and Drug Association, unveiled a 19 no no U.S. Department of Agriculture unveiled a $19 billion aid program with $3 billion set aside to buy excess food that would cover major ramp up of like fresh produce purchases along with dairy and meats. Federal officials predict it will take the better part of months before that food is like packed and shipped to food banks and other nonprofits in need of those such foods. And like many farmers across America who are like very like tired to see like they're very tired to see like their food going to waste and rotting have like used decided to use Facebook to post a post about saying like inviting people to take over their surplus. There was a story about this farmer in the state of Idaho who had 2 million pounds of potatoes, 2 million pounds, and basically he went on Facebook asking people to take some of his potatoes, and people are coming like far over from like Las Vegas or like even from Kansas to drive to his location to pick up as many potatoes as they want. Uh, yeah, it's not really the best time to be wasteful, but I guess our society has been increasingly wasteful right now, and it's kind of sad. Uh, okay. The next question is for you guys. How's the food supply in the grocery stores in Moscow? Like, are you guys still able to find a lot of things in like the grocery stores right now? I remember when I was in Moscow, the grocery stores were pretty well stocked. They didn't have everything, but like they were pretty well stocked. I wonder what it's like right now. Currently, like the I don't know. Currently, like the grocery stores in America, they kind of remind me of the grocery stores in Russia. Like sometimes a little like not too well stocked, but like they have the basics, but like they don't have everything as they used to. But like I'm interested to know what they are like right now. If you guys been to any recently. Questions. What are the advantages and disadvantages living in Russia compared with the USA? Uh, Living in Russia from the start, it's cheaper. The cost of living is a lot lower. Uh, I guess it's generally a lot like I don't know. I say like in Moscow like it is kind of like it's a little more of a difficult life living in Moscow. Like it's just like getting used to things and like uh getting used to things and yeah, it's just like like I really want to like if like Corona was not like a thing, I really want to go back to Moscow during the summer and just like intern or do stuff for the American Center during the summer months. But like coronavirus is a thing, and I really don't think that's going to happen. Um, in America, the cost of living is a lot higher. Like things are generally a lot more expensive. Like in America, for like let's say a lunch meal usually costs about anything from like $10 to $15. So about like roughly a thousand to 1,500 rubles, like a meal, and like sometimes I really think it's too much. But like in Russia, it's usually like a full meal is like literally half the price, so like 500-600 rubles. But yeah, like one thing I really did not like about Russia was just like it was kind of hard being comfortable in Russia. It was actually I thought it was practically impossible, but it was more getting comfortable being uncomfortable. But like at the end of the day, I had a great time. I learned how to overcome a lot of difficulties. Um, but yeah. Uh, A question from Flores Diria. What about your friends? Do they support Trump's COVID-19 measures? Do they agree with the measures? What about the demonstrations against the measures in California? So I am thankful that none of my friends, like, actually there is one or two, but are like supportive of like Trump's measures, like, and like the one or two that do support Trump's measures, he's kind of like they're kind of like, oh, like it's it should be there should be like we should like implement like a better strategy to open up the United States, so business can go back to normal. Um, what about the demonstrations against the measures in California? So like what's interesting about California is um, like what's really interesting about California is actually like the demographics of like who's like protesting and who's not. Generally, the people that protest in like Sacramento or Huntington Beach, they're not really from like the coastal cities, the coastal big cities of California. They're generally from like the middle part of California, the Central Valley, which is like a lot more rural, a lot more like farming communities, and like a lot more Trump voting, and like they usually vote conservative, and like most of those like protesters are actually from that area, not really from like the coastal communities. Uh, Collection from uh for us, does USDA participate in Ukraine or Kyrgyzstan? I don't know anything about the U.S. Department of Agriculture participating in those countries. I do assume that like if it's not USDA, they like are involved in countries like that. It would be USAID, who I know they do a lot of work in the agriculture sectors of developing countries. Regarding stores, we do not have pomegranate. I have not seen it in many stores last week. Uh, yeah, okay. Something I was really surprised about Russia. Then I saw like a lot more pomegranate than I ever seen in my life. But like, apparently you guys are out of it now, and that's kind of a surprise to me. How about your political views? I do not like sharing my political views. I feel that that's something I like to keep private. Um, I kind of learned that after like many years in living in America. Like I do not like it. Like I do not like losing friends and stuff because like talking about my political views. So generally, I just don't talk about my political views. I usually just tell people like whether I support an idea or not, and they kind of like assume whether I'm like what side I'm on, or like I guess, but like it's whatever. Like I don't want like I yeah, it's just like usually in America like we don't really talk, like we try not to talk about politics like in general like there's a joke. Three things you don't talk about in the American dinner table: politics, religion, and sports. And that's like I try to adhere to that rule, but like in the last couple of years, it's been increasingly hard given like the politicalization of a lot of like American society. Okay, next slide. Uh, So there was like earlier in the month, a Soyuz rocket launches a new crew to the ISS, the International Space Station. On April 9th, a Soyuz rocket successfully launched a new Russo-American crew to the ISS. On board the Soyuz spacecraft are Russian cosmonauts Anatoly Ivanishin and Ivan Wagner, and American astronaut Chris Cassidy, who just happens to be one of my personal heroes. Read up, like you guys should Google him. He lived a very interesting life. No, and they plan to remain on the station for 6 months as part of the Expedition 63 crew. Cassidy, for now, is planned to be the last American astronaut to ride on the Soyuz rocket, as we see like more and more American companies like SpaceX and and Boeing creating their own like rockets for to use. So like after this mission, NASA is planning to use spacecraft flights on commercial rockets like the SpaceX Dragon and like the Boeing CST-100 Starliner. Something about those rockets. They're largely like very reusable compared to like a Russian Soyuz rocket. So you can use them multiple times. They're like generally a little bit cheaper, and I think it's gonna be like revolutionary in like in the new space age. Oh, guys, be sure to ask me questions about space. I'm very interested from a very young age. Like, I'm very interested in space. Ask me questions about like my experiences, like let's say like going to NASA's headquarters in Florida, or like going to their mission control center in like Texas. But yeah, uh, an answer. Hello, prices have gone up, but all the items are available as they used to be. Some of the food markets are open. Fresh vegetables are available as usual. Thank you, Olga. No, Sukariva. Uh, uh, yeah, prices have definitely gone up, actually. And that's kind of the sad reality we live in right now. But like, you, I can kind of understand. It's kind of hard to supply food to like food during times like these. Like in America, like I don't know, there's a couple things I really want, like soy sauce. Like I really want French soy sauce because like my family we use a lot of soy sauce in our cooking, and like right now we're running very low on it. But like we're not so comfortable with like paying upwards of like 17 US dollars, which is about 1,500 rubles for like a liter of soy sauce, when it used to be like literally half the, or even like a quarter of the price. Fresh fruits and vegetables. Vegetables are generally like, you can find some vegetables right now, not as much as the variety as usual. Meats are getting harder to find. Like you can't find that many good quality meats these days. Supposedly, a lot of like the places like where they cut up the meat, like those meat processing places, are like closed. And like recently, Trump signed some says like, "Oh, I want to open up these like meat factories so people can have more meat." And yeah. Next slide. SpaceX news. Oh, so SpaceX plans to launch NASA astronauts to the International Space Station at the end of May 27th, exact. This will be the first time since 2011 where a manned mission launching from American soil will go to space. NASA astronauts Bob Behnken left, and Doug Hurley will ride on the SpaceX Dragon Demo 2 spacecraft on a Falcon 9 rocket to the International Space Station. After the May 27th launch, SpaceX will be the first private company to have a manned mission to the ISS, and marks the last demo mission before the capsule is officially certified for regular missions. It's considered a demo mission because this is the last demonstration mission SpaceX has to prove to say that they're going to be able to successfully go to the ISS and go to space with them, like with a manned crew. The first demonstration was like there was nobody in the spacecraft, but now the second demonstration there is a person in the spacecraft. And after this demonstration, they will like slowly NASA will continuously start to use more of these SpaceX Dragon rockets instead of using like the Russian Soyuz rockets. What else? Generally, so so like these two crew, they'll join the previous crew from that launched from Russia, and we'll be working ISS together for a couple months. I think they're staying until like August or so, so they're not staying as long as the Soyuz crew, Expedition 63. And then next slide, discussion questions. Do you think NASA's moved to using commercial rockets from private American companies will impact the delicate relationship between Russia and the U.S.? So one of the more it's like one of my favorite American companies is actually SpaceX. Like the story of how SpaceX got like became a thing was like I thought it just represents America a lot. Like Elon Musk, SpaceX founder and CEO, he once went to Russia where he tried to buy like two very old missiles, and like despite like drinking like he declared, "I'm going to build my own rockets," and now you see like SpaceX, like the rise of SpaceX and like a lot of commercial rockets, and like I don't know, it's kind of funny. Like I think last year they like private companies had more launch than like all of Russia did, and it was like it kind of why I say like, do you think these American companies will impact the delicate relationship between Russia and the U.S.? So traditionally, from like the Cold War times, like sometimes like the relationship between like the Russia and the U.S. only like they only what was it? They only kind of relied on like I mean they didn't really rely. One of the things like holding it up together was like their cooperation in space. And like right now we see like NASA not wanting to like use Russian rockets no longer and like go back to using American ones. Uh, what do you think will happen between the relationship, like the space cooperation? Keep a note, NASA are like still thinking about like potentially having Russian crew members in the rocket. So yeah. What do you think can be done to solve the food crisis? Like, what do you think the American government can do to solve the food crisis right now we're facing? Like, how are we going to be able to get food into like the food banks? And do you think the privatization of space to be inevitable? Is it a good thing? So that goes kind of along with my first question. Like right now, we're seeing like more and more like private companies going to space. It starts with like actually the first private company to go to space was actually like 2004 with I think it was Starship Ventures with their Spaceship One. Right now we're seeing SpaceX going to space. We're also seeing Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos' company going to space, and it's just like slowly we're going to see a lot more private companies in space. This is like traditionally a sphere that usually that was controlled by like national governments, but now it looks like more and more private companies are going to space. Like I think recently the American government actually granted SpaceX like a contract worth of several $1 million to use their rockets to deploy satellites in space. But like basically, my question for you guys: do you think the privatization of like space to be inevitable, and is it a good thing? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I look forward to hearing your responses. I'm going to go to answering some questions. Answer from Olga Suklueva. Hello, prices have gone up. Yeah, I already read that. Yeah, question from Olga Suklueva. How can you advise where to find more about logistics of farm products and big food companies? Usually, like, Facebook is a very good source. Like, mostly, a lot of like American farmers are like using Facebook to like in their local communities to like help supply like food and stuff, and like get the food into where they're needed. Usually I don't know. There's not really very means of good communication about where like people can find like large quantities of food right now, because like it is very everything is kind of confusing right now these days. Hopefully this is not going to be the new normal. It would be pretty painful if this is the new normal. Comment from Constantine Foss. Sorry about the incorrect answer and your frank answer. Don't worry about it. Like, as I like, I know it's kind of. I presume it's kind of new for you guys. Like, generally, one of the things that made me a little uncomfortable in Moscow was like the number of people like asking about like politics. Like, usually people I just meet, and they would ask me about like my views in about like Donald Trump, or like what I think about like the American process. Like, I know, I find it really interesting because like a lot of like people outside of America kind of view like the American politics as kind of like almost like a circus, but it's interesting. Do you guys have any questions about space? Please ask a couple questions in the comments. I would love to answer some. Yeah, so one of my like, so in Florida, there's like one of my favorite places in Florida is actually the Kennedy Space Center of NASA, like Cape Canaveral, where they launch rockets. It's just such a cool place. Like you're gonna be there for all day, and you just get a look at like old rockets. You touch a piece of the moon, like see where they launch the towers and like launch the rockets and stuff, and it's just like so cool. Like, it's a bit costly, so but like I definitely suggest the visit there. It is probably one of the coolest things I've seen in Florida. I've also been to the Johnson Space Center in Texas. That's where they train a lot of the American astronauts, and that's where like the Mission Launch Control is. Yeah, it was growing up, I used to love space. I thought it was really, really cool. Question 16 from Natalia. Where can we study and watch carefully your presentation statements later? I can, like, generally, you guys can watch it, like, it's gonna be on YouTube. You guys can watch it again. If I have permission to, I can upload my my slideshow if you guys wanted to view it more. But like, yeah, like I strongly I strongly suggest like you guys like do some more research on these stuff. Like, it's especially space. Like the space frontier is like one of the last things that America and Russia have in common, and it's just like generally a very delicate situation where where two countries can be working together. This might be a little difficult later on, considering like there might be a potential militarization of space, considering like the number of like military satellites in space. I feel like space will no longer be a peaceful place in the next coming years with the rise of China, with the rise of Russia, with the rise of America. I feel like if like worst comes to it, there might be like a small Star Wars, so to speak, like where like people are like different countries are destroying each other's satellites. What is your attitude about UFO objects? The Guardian and Yahoo say a lot about it. Um, I do believe. I do believe there's such thing as aliens. I do believe there's such thing as UFOs. I was actually going to include a slide about like UFOs, specifically about the U.S. Navy and the Pentagon releasing a lot of tapes about there like a lot of like videotapes of like potential UFO sightings, and it's just like I thought it was really cool, but like I did not know how to incorporate it into my slideshow, so I didn't really ask it. Yeah, like growing up, I used to be very scared of like UFOs and aliens. I was like, there would be nights that like I would just like stay up all night thinking about aliens. But yeah, any more questions? Any more like space ones? um, what else? Like, I guess like growing up, I was very much I haven't really grown out of like my childhood days. I still love planes. I still love like cars. I still love anything military related, and like I still love like space. So like a lot of my childhood interests like are still like are still like are still here right now. As the saying goes, like boys and their toys. Like as we grow older, our toys only get bigger, and it's just like I don't know. It's interesting. Like one of my favorite places in Washington D.C. are actually the two Air and Space museums in D.C. There's the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum in the National Mall in D.C., which is pretty good, cool. Like you can see like Apollo 11 rocket. You can see the like a model of like the first aircraft, the Wright Flyer, and a bunch of like World War II planes. And then like nearby at the Dulles Center near Dulles Airport, there's a place called the Hazy Center, which is I believe entrance is free, but parking costs a little. Actually, the Smithsonian is also free too, but like the Dulles Center, it's probably one of my favorite air and space museums in the world actually, because it's just like they have an actual space shuttle in the museum. They have a lot of like old military planes there, and like a lot of missiles, and like they have a Concorde, which is one of my favorite, and like a Blackbird, which is one of my two favorite planes. They had my favorite World War II plane in there. Yeah, it's like I don't know. I was kind of sad in Moscow. Like I was not able to go to like a lot of the air and space museums. There was this like I mean air museums. There was this Air Force museum slightly outside of Moscow, a little out of the way. I did not have time to go to. I'm a little bummed out about it. I'm also a little bummed out I did not get to go to the Tank Museum south of Moscow, about like 2 hours away in like this small town in Kubinka. I really did not like it was. I really wanted to see those tanks, but like I did not get the chance given like how like rushed my exit was out of Moscow. Uh, would you tell us some sentences in Russia's? Would you tell us some sentences Russian? Oh God, this is gonna be embarrassing, but я немного говорю по-русски. Я живу в Калифорнии. Я учусь в Clark университет. Меня зовут Hao. Uh, this is all the Russian I can think of right now. If you ask me a question, I can maybe respond in Russian, but it's gonna be a little difficult concerning the time and like I'm gonna be on the spot. But yeah, Russian is a very fun language, probably one of the most fun languages I've learned. Um, but yeah, it's not an easy language, and I still stress out a lot about the language. Do you celebrate Independence Day every year? Sadly, I do not celebrate. I mean, I do not celebrate the Independence Day every year. Usually, the American Independence Day, like, it's not usually as like parades and like. I mean, there are parades and stuff, but like largely there's a lot of. It's mostly around revolve around like barbecues and chanting USA and like American flags and stuff. It's not in like the traditional like Russian like Independence Day or like Victory Day where you guys like see like tanks and stuff. Uh, that leads me reminds me one of the like when I was in Moscow, one of my biggest dreams was to see May Day, like May 9th. It was going to be like the 75th anniversary of the World War II, and like I was not able to see it these days. I was not able to see it, and I was so sad because like I was looking forward like literally for the last 10 years to see May Day. Like I really want to see like the tanks going down the uh, tanks going down the Red Square and stuff. Like I don't know, I'm so sad I did not get to see it. Like I just. Uh, what is the greatest holiday for me? For me, as a college student, the greatest holidays are the holidays I can get off. There's like if if I can get a holiday off and I can get an extra day to sleep, it will be great. Uh, right now, like the spring break for MGMO, is gonna be coming up soon in a couple days actually. But yeah, it's gonna be and like I don't know, I'm just looking forward to be finally able to having a decent sleep schedule because like right now I'm in California living on Moscow time, and that's just so difficult. Uh, thank you, Hal. Was very listen to you. Not bad Russian, honestly. Thanks. My Russian still needs a lot of work. I recently got a girlfriend that's Ukrainian, so like hopefully she should be able to teach me more Russian. I'm hoping she does. Uh, comment from Fuaz Dira. You have a deep sociological, philosophical question about inevitable privatization. It could be the end of humanity. Yeah, honestly, privatization, like uncontrolled, can be a bad thing, and it's not the like space is not the only thing that's going to be probably privatized. Like we're already seeing war being privatized with like the rise of private military companies. We're also seeing healthcare being privatized, like in America, causing the cost of things to be so much. I do personally feel like privatization should be something that should be very controlled, and like the government should keep an eye on it. But because like eventually we're going to reach a state where private companies are going to be stronger than entire nations, and to me that's a bit scary. Like especially like when it comes to like companies like private military companies or like how much control they have over I guess like a lot of the world, like big companies, like big multinational companies, like Coca-Cola or Monsanto. Like if they're not controlled, like I do have a feeling some of them do have a chance to control a large part of like the world and like hold countries hostage. Does NASA collaborate with other countries except Russia in space programs? NASA actually they they course like they collaborate with a lot of countries. Actually, I think they don't cooperate with China. They don't cooperate with Iran, but they do cooperate with like the EU Space Agency. They do cooperate with JAXA, the Japanese Space Agency. They do collaborate with collaborate with this space agency from the United Arab Emirates. I think like the International Space Station, there's like some 16 some countries that contributed to the space station. So that's like, I guess that's something really cool. Like I feel like space is like one of the things that the world can be like very like relatively like work together and like peaceful in. But these days, like we're seeing a lot of like remilitarization of like militarization of space, and primarily like satellites, new different satellites, satellite killers, and that's going to be concerning because like the last thing I want is for space to be a new battlefield. Any more questions? Actually, one of my favorite museums in Moscow is actually the Space Museum. I thought it was really, really cool. It was probably one of the most impressive buildings I've ever seen in my life, with that like rocket just going in the air, and I'm just like, it was so cool. And then like my second favorite museum in Russia is probably like the Victory Museum, like the Great Patriotic War Museum. I thought that was really, really cool. I was there all day, and it was kind of funny because I was there during a snowstorm, so like I was the only one like viewing like all the tanks and airplanes. But yeah, I thought it was really, really cool. I took a lot of cool photos. Sadly, I did not get to see all the museums I wanted to in Moscow. Like, I should like looking back, I should have used my time a little more wisely. But it is life. What can you expect? Things like I don't know. Things I thought like life in general is like very unexpected, but things in Russia is on a whole new level, even more unexpected. But yeah, it is what it is. Like before, I thought like I was going to be a very unhappy. I'm going to be I'm going to be back in the United States, but like right now, I feel a little blessed. I still have friends in Moscow, and I kind of worry about them, considering like their safety and stuff. But yeah, guys, please stay safe. Like, it's not worth going out, especially when there's like the cases are like blowing up like crazy still. Like, stay indoors, be smart, listen to science. Like, I don't want the last thing I want to do was like for you guys to get sick. So wash your hands, be cautious. Yeah. Okay, guys. Last slide. Thank you guys for listening. You guys were a great audience. You asked me a lot of good questions. If you like the content, please like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to us on YouTube. Next week, I will be doing a presentation on the great state of California, so please tune in for that. If anyone asks you what's the best state in the United States, it is California. Remember, West Coast, best coast. But yeah. Thank you guys for listening. You guys were a great audience, and most of all, stay safe. Don't be stay home. I wish you guys luck in your studies. I wish you guys luck in your careers. Once again, thank you for listening. I look forward to see you guys next week. Thank you very much.